Welcome to the Squarebase Show. Me and your host, Val Heffelfinger, are on a mission from God. And in this episode, that God is a shut, where we'll be doing a Chaos Dwarf deep dive. Welcome to the show.
Rob? What did you say, Rob? What did you say, Rob? Did you say it's a deep dive? It's a deep dive!
Deep dive, deep dive! Oh my God. So if anyone is excited, this is about to be a Chaos Dwarf deep dive. But before we do that, before we talk about the followers of Hashut, and before anyone clicks off, be like, oh, actually, I'm not sure I'm keen for Chaos Dwarfs. Let me give you an elevator pitch on what you're about to learn from this army. Yeah? Imagine dwarfs, but you can have monsters and magic and better war machines, and they're cooler.
They are cooler.
They're cooler.
Depending on the era, tall hats or smaller hats. If you like big hats, you can have those. You like smaller hats, you can have those too.
Grimdark times, or you can go completely whimsical. Your choice. So don't click off because you're about to have a great time. But before we talk about that in depth, I just want to talk to Mr. Val Heffelfinger about a couple of things. Number one, how are you?
I am just top of the pops, man. I've been having a great week. The Squarebase online tournament is popping off. If you have yet to swing by the old Patreon page, if you are a patron of ours, or if you wish to join up and become a patron today, this is a great opportunity to join us for an international online event being run through warhall.eu, heavily supported by our friends there. So you can go to patreon.com/squarebase podcast. Yep. Whatever it is, the link's in the description. There's an enrollment form there. You do have to be a patron. Night. You did it?
I like the questions. The questions are fun. The questions like how much you play. Like I don't play at all, but I argue on Reddit. I'm like perfect. They were good. They were fun.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, I put a lot of heart, a lot of thought into that. There's actually a player pack now, which actually I'm going to post up on Reddit as well. So you can see how the actual format is. It's going to run from basically the first week of June to the last week of July, maybe spilling over to the very beginning of August, depending if we go 6 weeks to get a true champion. That would be the only reason why we might go into that week of the 2nd of August. But yeah, it's looking really, really exciting, and I'm so pumped to get some games in.
I'm excited as well. Me too.
I like that this is all just like it seems like something we're doing out of benevolence and generosity of and care and affection for our incredibly supportive patrons who genuinely I love. But really, it's about me needing to play this game a lot more, and so I appreciate you guys getting dragged along on this mission from Gad.
Yeah, it's like when people thank me for my terrain pack for Squarebase. They're like, thanks for doing it. I'm like, I just needed to do it. Like, that's it. I just needed to. I had people coming to an event. I need to know what the terrain was going to be like. That's it. That's my 1080. I'm pretty pumped. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to trying a bit of Warhol. I'm looking forward to literally table flipping, screaming down the microphone to whoever I get paired against. Why don't you have a microphone? What were you doing during the pandemic? Like stuff like that. I'm going to be like, what are you doing?
I think you'll be fine. Don't worry, folks. He's a big teddy bear. He's going to be a lot of fun to play with and against, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm going to have a good time. I'm looking forward to it a lot. That's obviously a joke. You did ask me a question this week, and I want to kind of console you, actually, because I am running a Square-based event this weekend coming. Square-based event, Square-based 6.
IRL.
Square-based 6, I think. Tickets are selling out for my doubles event. Which I have lined up, is on the TSN Arena Square Eventbrite, if you want to go check it out, something like that. But which is doubles format. We talked about that last week. So people seem excited about that. But again, just want to try and remind you personally, because you this week, you said that you felt like a lot of people were saying that the game is slowing down. And I would say...
Go ahead.
No, you have to.
No, you go. You would say.
I just don't think that's the case. It's still, I think the thing you and I need to accept, and we kind of talked about this last week, we just need to accept that the game is still so new. People are still putting armies together, and a lot
And waiting for their favorite one. Yep.
and waiting for their favorite one. And I think that, and I've said this a lot, and I said this, we said this a year before Old World launched and it exploded, and I'll say this now, we're just at the very beginning stages. That said, though, there are a ton of events in the calendar that have not just Honest Wargamer events or TSN Arena events, but like there have been a bunch from other people around, and people are slowly building up their terrain. We know that the Warhammer World event, which was like 50, 60 people, was like had 200 people on the wait list. So I think it's a situation, there just are not enough events right now. There are not enough events. All my events sell out almost immediately. So I assume there's a ton of people that just can't wait to go. So I would say that you should be more consoled, because I understand it, because it's a little bit where like you kind of be like, oh, what's happening? You know what I mean?
So I want to say the reason I brought that up was actually directly related to comments I've seen start to percolate a little bit. We saw a lot of people predicting the death of the game when we were tap dancing for time for over a year waiting for it to come out. But recently, and it's not many. It's 2 or 3 comments over the last few videos where people have just been like, this game's dead, no one's playing it. And in my head, I'm like, I don't think that's true.
It's
just based on our
not true.
Based on our viewership, all that kind of stuff. But what I would love to do actually is like, because we do have, in the background, we actually received a juicy delivery of stats from May, just I think earlier this morning, which is so sick. Can't wait to go look at them. But I'd love to actually go have a look at like player count and just see like how active is a community that we could actually observe. I did this with 40K back in 2016 or 17. And it was wild to actually follow the player base, as far as event goers were concerned. That all being said, I mean, certainly I have no reason from, the way this show's been going, my own personal interest, events I've seen locally and around here, definitely still lots going on. But I think in a lot of ways that kind of a perception can color someone's decision to get into something or not. There's a thing about like inflation, for example. What is inflation? A lot of times inflation is simply the expectation that prices will continue to increase, right? It does modify your behavior, whether or not, prices are increasing. If the public perceives that prices will increase, there's sometimes a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy there. I'd love to be able to just stamp that out with some cold hard facts. Maybe on our next stat update, I can do some spreadsheeting and come up with something.
Yeah, I think. Maybe we just kind of do a health of the nation, state of the nation kind of address next week. That sounds like a fun idea. But I just want to be clear. I've got a couple of anecdotal pieces of information, and I think other information as well. Anecdotal, at my club, there's always 2 or 3 people wanting to play, 2, 3, 4 people that want to play Old World, like every week, and obviously they rotate between different people. And we only started our club a couple of weeks ago, so there's, I think the most people we've had so far is like 6 to 8 people. So we'll calm down those numbers. But events, I've already ran 4, 5. I've got loads more lined up, and they keep selling. Very active. That's part. Whenever I do an event, I put all of the people who've been at the event into a WhatsApp group, and then that WhatsApp group is just incredibly active every day.
Sure is.
And then also like just the health of our videos and Patreon really feels like there's a ton of people around the world that are excited and interested. So like for anyone who's out there who's dealing with that, that's why I wanted to address it. I just want you to know that I think that this game, I also think this game is going to go from strength to strength. When we see new army releases, Dwarf's going to come out, people will be pumped. Next army release, people will be pumped. When we get that first new army, when we get that first Cathay or Kislev,
game on.
It's absolutely to the moon, in my personal opinion. So I'd be pretty stoked. GHB, that rumored GHB thing, where we get more of a tournament format. I would say it's just got to be how long it's taking people to get models, and how long it's taking people to put armies together. That's what I got to say. It feels like that's my TLDR, and I think people should be pumped about the game because I think it's going from strength to strength personally.
Yep. And I do also, like, for those folks who do feel like it's dead out there, like, be the change you want to see in the world. Like, I by the end, by November, I started playing fantasy like 2 or 3 years ago. And then by November of last year, hosted an event that was almost 30 people, right? So like that was sheerly through force of bullying and will that was able to happen with a literal dead game. So I think Old World is something that can be built up over time. Encourage your friends to play, drag people in, do whatever you got to do to get people to embrace the power and the glory of Hashut, if that's what you're into.
Yes, so we've done a deep dive for Orcs and Goblins. Arguably, as we said in our tier video, we did say one of the better armies to collect. Now, I would argue that if you're going to go and collect a Renegade / non-core faction, while we put this at the bottom on miniatures to collect, like availability of miniatures. But if you're talking about it from I'm a little bit inspired. If I'm honest, my good friend, this weekend I was at Turnip Con. Yes. We hosted a 42 person, 44 person event for Turnip, which Turnip 28 is a vegetable themed Napoleonic war game. But
it's got great vibes.
Great vibes. But importantly, is miniature agnostic. That's the important part. Miniature agnostic. They're just like, you have a base, you put anything on it. And the creativity...
Neither confirms or denies the existence of miniatures.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Exactly. And the hobby was easily some of the best hobby I've ever seen in my life. Like, just stunning stuff. Like, there was a guy dressed up in a chef suit. He had a chef hat with a little tail sticking out of it. And he was like, I was like, is that a rat in there? He's like, I can confirm nor deny. Neither confirm nor deny that I'm controlled by a rat. But his army was French. They all had little vegetables that they shot. His cannon was a teacup. Like a teapot. Sorry, as a little cannon. Anyway. It was beautiful, is my point. And it really got me on this kind of like, do you know what? Chaos Dwarfs, while they have a very, very obvious aesthetic, you could do a lot of kit bashing with Chaos Dwarfs. You know, miniature fire warriors you could do a lot with.
On our best armies to collect and play tier list, and this was a little interesting for us, we did get a little flack, especially from the Chaos Dwarf stands out there, that there's a universe of third party and STL makers that do some really awesome stuff for let's say evil dwarf themed models out there, and they are, as far as like the ability to find good things to be models for the game, definitely there's absolutely no lacking there. There's just we have no reason to believe that there's any Games Workshop support forthcoming, which was rare for us to wait so heavily, like being able to get the genuine GW stuff. But people do tend to like their genuine GW stuff, despite there being some really lovely options out there. By the way, can we shout out for 1 second before we dive in? So we've done Orcs and Goblins, my personal favorite army. We're now on to Chaos Dwarves, Rob's personal favorite army. And do you mind if we take a moment to shout out your former and now once more returned, or soon to be returned, Chaos Dwarf collection?
Shout out to Hooves of Doom. Hoofs of Doom. Val very sweetly has negotiated the return of my Chaos Dwarf army, which, if people have been long-time followers of me as creator, when I left Games Workshop, I was in a pretty rough place financially for a while. I was living on a lot of soup and breads and jam sandwiches, and then looking at
when you first left, you had soup and jam. Those were heady days.
Yeah, heady days. So I ended up selling a lot. So I ended up selling a lot of my armies, specifically my Chaos Dwarf army, which was my love, if many people know. And then Val was able to track it down and renegotiate the return of some of my Chaos Dwarf army. And I'm quite excited about it, because it means I'm going to be able to rebase it, and I'm going to be able to put it and get it straight on the tabletop, start playing some games. So I'm pretty hype about that. So thank you very much. And also thanks to Hoofs of Doom for renegotiating and getting those back. So that's pretty cool.
I want to say put very clear terms here that I somehow stumbled on when I was looking at Chaos Dwarfs for 8th edition. Rob's so basically Hoofs of Doom bought this army off of Rob, was astounded, clearly maybe even a little uncomfortable with how girthy, massive, thick, this collection was. And this is all Forge World stuff. So clearly the man was working with a discount when he was acquiring all these things. Or maybe it was 5 fingers. I don't know. But
I'd like to be clear, I've never stolen miniatures in my life. Hearts, yes. Miniatures, no.
Regardless, it was a bountiful collection. So much so that basically Rob's getting half of it back from Hoofs of Doom, and it is still more dwarves than anyone could ever reasonably play in any single game, or perhaps over any period of time. It is an absurd amount of dwarves. And you said that I negotiated. No, he negotiated himself down, returned it for about half of what Rob didn't put Rob over a barrel. Was incredibly kind and really, really happy to be able to return some of them home. He got to keep the unpainted one. Rob gets some of his old painted ones back. It seems like everybody wins, and I was really, 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 really happy. Ever since I saw that video, it's been kind of a thing in my head that I was hoping that we could get some of those dwarves back to you. So I'm really, really pleased that they are currently making their way across the ocean to you.
They are. They're making their way. I'm excited for the little fellas to return. It's actually quite sweet. So, and I can't really deal with the emotions. So, but I'm excited. So we should
shove them down there somewhere,
Like all my feelings, I'm just going to compress them into a tiny ball, not deal with them. Hold on. So we should get on with this unbiased Chaos Dwarf review.
Get on with it.
Give me a moment. I'm just quite hot. Let me just take my shirt off. Wait 1 second.
Always hot and bothered, everybody. Rob now stepping away from the microphone.
So let me just get on with this unbiased Chaos Dwarf review.
Ow!
Unbiased.
Look at this.
Okay.
And this is a Taur'ruk Khan. I don't know why I always say it that way. Chaos Dwarf fan, but he is wearing right for podcast fans out there right now. Rob Symes currently wearing a 2nd edition Chaos Dwarfs Armies book T-shirt. It's beautiful. A glorious Lammasu. I think that sets the tone for what we're about to do, folks.
Yeah, let's get into it. And again, I want to thank my friend Val for being here because he's just the best and it makes my days really good. So, all right, so Chaos Dwarfs. Chaos Dwarfs as an army list. All right. And like I said, just buy anything, stick them on bases, have some fun. They got a lot of really good lore and story that you can kind of get really weird and funky with. And my pitch to you on this deep dive is I think it's all about the war machines and the wizards. So you don't have to buy a lot of models. You can do a lot of like Demon Engine stuff, grab some 40k stuff, I reckon. I'd even like to see someone try to turn Votan into this. I think that could be spicy. I think you could.
Yeah, Votan?
I think maybe.
Or even the KO, the Caradron Overlords. They have that more mechanized dwarf feel. Like, I mean, they're very steampunky, but you could do. I mean, do whatever. You can do whatever you want. Just paint them evil, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people. They just do regular ass dwarves, but they're like red and black, and boom, Chaos Dwarfs.
Exactly. Papa Zek, thanks for subscribing for the first time. That's very lovely of you. Okay, so what can you have in a Chaos Dwarf army if you're interested? Up to 50% of your characters, as always, can be a Sorcerer Prophet or an Infernal Castellan for 1,000 points. Now, Val, I think it's fair to say that we're probably always going to be pitching up them level 4s. We're pretty much believers that level 4s are the future.
Well, the future and present. I think I always gonna want. I'm never leaving home without a level 4. That's the way I'm gonna be. So yeah, I have to agree with you on that one. Maybe I'm on a Lammasu. We'll see.
Exactly. Then we got Bull Centaur Taur'ruk and Bull Centaur renders, up to 1 Bull Centaur Taur'ruk, per unit of Bull Centaur renders. Demon Smith Sorcerers, which are your lower level wizards, Infernal Seneschals and Hobgoblin Khans.
Khan.
And an Infernal Seneschal can obviously be a BSB for 25 points. And then, just to combine mine and Val's armies, 1 Black Orc boss. If you want, up to 1 of them, it can be taken in this list, which is pretty fun.
As clarified in the FAQ, drawing from the Orc and Goblin tribes, weapons and war gear and, magical items and stuff. So, of course, Orcs and Goblins have some of the best kit that you can add to them. So having an Orc character you can randomly splash in your list, pretty sick. Hobgoblin Khans, just want to shout out, used to be a really, really important tech piece And I don't know how they come up on points in this one.
There's a fun kind of like strap a bomb, run him in magic item you could do with the Hobgoblin Khan, which is quite fun. I think you can do some fun stuff with it because you can put him on a wolf. So
on a wolf, unlike their mounted brethren, like they're in square based format, you can take 3 of those guys. So we got some cheap and cheerful characters there. Pretty cool.
Yeah, they're cheap enough that you would they could be redirectors like any other redirectors, like an eagle or something you pick up from another army. So I think they're fab. Then for core, you have to have a unit of Infernal Guard. You can have multiple Hobgoblin Cutthroats. You can have 1 unit of Black Orc Mob. As well, which is super cool. So which gives you a nice kind of like different vibe to the army, I think. Then special, and this is where it starts getting really fun. Infernal Ironsworn, which are just chosen to Chaos Warriors that are Infernal Guard. Sneaky Gits, Kadai Fireborn, which is your monstrous infantry, and a unit of Bull Centaur Renders, which is your monstrous cav. Then, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to say it right now, star of the show, the Iron Demon, 1 per 1,000 points. Yeah, just absolutely, Babe Ruth in it. And then you can have 1 War Machine from Deathshrieker Rocket or a Magma Cannon and 2 Hobgoblin Bolthrowers, up to 2 per 1,000 points. And then for rare, you can have a unit of Hobgoblin Wolfriders or for every Hobgoblin Khan, 1 War Machine chosen from a Dreadquake Mortar, absolute OG, and the Hell Cannon. As well. Val, I know you've been looking at lists and you've been looking at other stuff, but is there anything that stands out to you? Is there a reason you'd want to pick up units in this army for any reason? It's I know because you're a big fan of the Destroyer, and that pissed you off that it never made it through.
Yeah, well, and rumored to have been removed at an 11th hour type moment as well. The Kadai Destroyer, there is somewhere out there there's got to be a potato camera photo of an old PDF of the Kadai Destroyer rules. So, anybody out there, where to find it, just slide them on over here. But either way, Kadai Destroyer used to be rad. Love that model. Everyone used to love that model. / never really existed. Maybe that's why they didn't include it. Things that really jump out to me are just immediately, this feels like a dwarf army that really doesn't even need to bring dwarves. You have the green skin backbone in your cutthroats and your black orcs, and then maybe even your sneaky gets. So oddly enough, it feels like this army could pivot to a whole lot of cheap meat on the table, which is immediately something that your average dwarf army list can't do, including bringing things like monstrous infantry and cavalry. So you have a really great variety of units. Of not only units, but unit types, and you get a really cool, feeling for the army. I think it's a really cool list.
Yeah, that's kind of my pitch. I think it's good. All right, we'll start out with our level 4, the Sorcerers of Hashut. Obviously, you've got 2 versions, 195 points for our level 3, which we can upgrade to a level 4. Access to toughness 5, probably I should shout that out. Toughness 5, pretty nice. 3 wounds and leadership 10 as well. So it feels like a great start for a wizard, which I personally, and also can be equipped with heavy armor, which is great. Also for a wizard, which I think is nice. And access to demonology, dark magic, and elementalism. I will say this is where I immediately fall down on this unit. Specifically, no access to battle magic, which has got fireball, pillar of flame. I'm just kind of like, what the hell? What the hell?
That's a fair point. Fire magic being, kind of a thing they do, given they live probably on lava flows and stuff. Known for loving the heat. Very spicy food, these guys. The guys, they enjoy a good curry. I don't know. But, if you had to pick 3, demonology, dark magic, elementalism, specifically demonology in this is a lot of fun. Flying various bricks of dwarven infantry around. I don't know. I think there's an elementalism is dope as hell, as everyone knows. So you got your -2 armor save in there. So there's lots of good stuff here.
I would say one of the things as well when you look at this is uniquely, because obviously when we get to talk about the dwarfs have got a very similar dwarven stat line to the other dwarfs that you can play. But access to, especially dark magic. I think you have the ability to start really like manipulating stats up and down of the enemy yourselves. Like you can really start. Battle magic maybe would have been a little bit too much. I'm not really sure. 5-up ward on some of these units. Maybe that was a bit much. I don't know. But I personally would have liked to have seen that. But you've got some real access to really kind of like buff these units up. And then really reduce the effectiveness of the other units. And I think that's quite good. So I quite like that. And they've obviously got access to their own unique spell lore. And there's not really much to sing about from that spell lore, with the exception of one spell, which is an aura -1 to hit from enemy units within range of the character that cast it, which is quite nice. I quite like that. I don't think that's bad at all. In combat, that's good. In shooting, I feel that's a positive as well. But nothing really super saucy. I'm a little bit disappointed about that as well, because obviously, dwarfs are magic. But there we go.
There are, however, some really banger magic items though that do make up maybe for a lack of those good signature spells.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, there's some good stuff to be had nonetheless.
Yeah, I think we'll do the characters and we'll do the magic items. I think that's a good shout, definitely. But one of the cool things is you can have a dark forged weapon, which is kind of like when you get the chaos upgrades for Warriors of Chaos, but you roll once at the beginning of the battle, and then probably on your level 4 wizard, the one you're looking for is +1 to cast. So you become a level, like you cast it +5, which is pretty spicy.
And the Darkforged weapons, rather unchaosy for their lack of super bad options. I think the worst thing that you can get on it is really like flaming attacks. Everything else is like downright useful. Only downside, of course, is you can't pick which one you get, but it's still like you're probably not disappointed no matter which one you get.
Yeah, I agree, so I think especially cool because you can either put these inside of a brick of a unit, and I think they can hold their own. Toughness 5, weapon skill 5, 3 attacks, leadership 10 especially. I feel is really really good. A level 4 wizard, and then importantly, has got stubborn is in there as well. I think that's important, but has got, and this is pretty cool, 2 different special rules. Infernal Engineer, unless this model is fleeing or engaged in combat, once per turn, a friendly war machine that's within its command range can re-roll a scatter dice or an artillery dice, and it's only once. It's not once per battle; it's once per turn. That's really good.
That's good.
It's really good.
So this is both a magician and an engineer.
For the same points. You don't have to buy the engineer for 50, 45, 65 points, whatever engineers are. You just get that baked in.
We've already said that Chaos Dwarfs love wearing different hats. So that's, very fitting.
You're 2-hat wizard. Yeah. And again, as a wizard, like with Chaos Wizards, a bit of armor, not the best armor, but a bit of armor is pretty nice. Also got this Sorcerer's Curse when you do any miscasts. If the test is failed, you do a toughness test. You gain +1 modifier to your toughness, which is pretty good. Instead of rolling on the miscast table, and if the test is passed, you roll on the miscast table as normal. Sorry if you fail it. So you can effectively lose a wound, gain a toughness, but not miscast at the right time. Yeah. It's not bad. A little bit of buff off a miscast. It's pretty spicy.
I mean, that's not too bad. Although, generally speaking, losing a wound to a miscast is, especially if you're a tuned-up character, is a little bit hard to do. So, that's a bit dicey, considering, most you have is probably 3 wounds, depending on your mounts.
Yeah.
Speaking of mounts, these are the guys who are probably going to go on. So, I think you got 2 options here. Am I correct? Or maybe 3?
You got 2. Yeah, you got 2. You got the Lammasu, and then you've got yourself So Lammasu is 95 points, if you're going to add that on. Gets you +3 wounds, which is quite nice. Is a flying monstrous creature with fly 9. And then has got magic resistance 3. Now, that's where it gets really good. And then, obviously, because they're on a mount, if they do the miscast, they're going to get that plus toughness while also on the mount. Now you're going to start getting some very tough characters with a lot of wounds. The Lammasu Magic Resistance 3, though, feels very good because now the enemy caster trying to shut down you as a caster, you could potentially be at, a level 4 and they're at Magic Res 3. So they're at -3 on their cast. Feels like you're pretty undefeatable in the magic phase, at least.
Well, certainly defensively, that's massive. A -3 magic res and being a level 4, that's big. Has stomp attacks. That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
And as well as Swiss Stride and Terror. So you can do some terror bombing. But also just like a monstrous creature mount, as opposed like, if I'm not mistaken, that's 360 degrees of vision.
Mm-hmm.
That's being able to move in any direction. That's being very like that turns your sorcerer prophet into a real queen on the table. You know, like you're able to like move around, right? Like this feels pretty good, despite not being like a tuned up, ultra defensive, or and like attack heavy thing. This feels like a really nice thing for 95 points to put your caster on.
I mean, 95 points. If there was a magic item for +3 wounds on your general / level 4 wizard, you'd probably take it. Like, just straight off the bat. I don't know. Let me know in the comments below what you'd take. But I don't know. I feel like I would take that. Sure, it's a large target, and, we have problems there. But I think ultimately it's faster, more mobile, more range. And then, brings a couple of extra attacks, like 2, and then does D3 stomps. I don't think that's bad. It's not going up against dragons. I'm not saying it is. But I would say I'm seeing more and more wizards not really inside big infantry blocks or even cavalry blocks. They're generally operating as kind of like solo units, like demon princes, units on magic carpets, units on dragons. Feels much more like what I'm seeing level 4s do versus running around. And the fact that you've got access to this and it's pretty cheap feels really nice, I'm going to say. So, yeah, I really like the Lammasu. The other thing that's fun is you could put them on the Great Tauruses, of which there are 2 types, the Bale Taurus or the Great Taurus. And the Bale Taurus is 160 points, adds 4 wounds, and importantly, +1 toughness. But it's its own good monster in its own right. 4 attacks at strength 6, D3 +1 stomp attacks. Again, fly 9, furious charge, causes terror, swift stride, so it's very fast. It's got blazing body, born of fire. Blazing body is particularly good because blazing body's fine because it does like a couple of like AP attacks in combat. But born of fire is really good because you get a 3-up ward against flaming attacks. So if someone's bought, especially in the new troll meta that we might see with regen and people being like, "Fuck, I'm going to need to make sure I bring more flaming attacks to deal with them trolls." Guess what?
Also, more importantly, lots of probably two of the best armies in the game are undead and also very vulnerable to flaming attacks. So yeah, not necessarily a thing that you won't see out there as people keying more on flaming attacks.
Yeah, so I think being able to have a ward save against that feels incredibly effective in my personal opinion. And then it's just, choose your flavor. Do you want the +1 toughness for 160, or do you want like the slightly better, less better Great Taurus? Probably always just go for the better one if you're buying the upgrade, right? I think.
Well, I mean the Great Taurus, I mean, it's still a Great Taurus. It's a good Taurus, maybe even the best Taurus you've ever seen. It's a Great Taurus.
Huge.
It's a huge Taurus. I mean, you're already going to be toughness 5, which ain't bad. I mean, toughness 6 obviously is a level up, but you are shaving those 40 points, and you might be able to, with magic items, juice up your character with those 40 points instead. Although, yeah, you're still getting your +4 wounds. I think the Great Taurus for a 30-point upgrade over the Lammasu is definitely worth a look. And if you just want to go if you just want top of the line Sorcerer Prophet, the best one we got on the lot. I mean, Bale Taurus probably not a bad call for sure. But yeah, also as far as OG models go.
Yeah, really
very
good.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'd say one of the things that's pretty spicy about the Taurusai versus the Lammasu, is do you want that -3 magic resistance? Do you want the 3 up against flaming? And I think in the right meta, it gives you some real nice switch arounds. You're like, actually, there's a real problem unit that I want to go deal with. Yeah, so I like the character mounts. I think they're good. I think the level 4. Go on.
No, I was just gonna say, are you getting stuck in, right? Like, is it a guy who's gonna go try and beat something up, or is he someone who's trying to put their leadership bubble in the right place and being in the right position to use the magic? I think there's just sort of, how do you want to kit it out? Do you want something that's going to be flying over and kicking some ass? Bale Taurus. or something that's going to be maybe trying to stay at arm's length and supporting being a buff piece, right?
Yeah, I'd say one of the things to remember about the sorcerers that they are those engineers. So if you're not running a bunch of cannons and other stuff, and maybe that's again why battle magic wasn't in there. Having those war machines, then being able to add on all of that extra output from the battle magic spell tree. Also, I think that's why we're going to see those Empire gun lines with just all the wizards with battle magic. Then you're going to see a bunch of, it's kind of dwarfs but better in many ways. So I think you got to remember that. Are you taking them to be the engineer? Are you taking them to be a caster? What's the plan? I think you've got a lot of utility there. On paper, it feels a bit static, but actually, once you start thinking about how it's going to apply to the rest of the army, I feel like you've got some real good options, which is pretty spicy. So I like these. I think they're really good. Obviously you can go level 4. You can even have level 2s on Great Tauruses or Lammasus. And I do love the idea of a brigade of Lammasai demon smiths running around.
Yeah, why not? I mean, and if you don't know what a Lammasu is, you should probably look it up because it's stuff of nightmares. It's a flying bull with a man's curly bearded face. It's a very strange thing. What are your thoughts on the cost? I mean, the price that these evil dwarfs are paying for their access to a level 4 wizard, because base without any upgrades or anything, we're already over 200 points.
I think it's comparable. I mean, maybe you're a tad spoiled as an ONG player. Like, a level 4 sits around those points cost anyway.
Fully kitted out, level 4, 240 points. You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
We're not on the base model. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, ultimately, I feel like the game, I feel like Old World is a level 4 caster game. And then you work around that, whatever the situation. And ultimately, it's kind of like my exact counterpoint with Chaos Warriors, where I'm not taking Chaos Warriors or Chosen or Knights. But, at least in this, the very point of Chaos Dwarfs is that they have sorcerers, which they shouldn't have, and they're committed to Hashut the god. So I feel like the fact that that's a quintessential element of building this list is great, for the narrative feeling of building the list. So I think that's actually quite nice. And it's also an engineer and helps those war machines. So the cost is kind of not irrelevant, but I feel like you're taking it anyway. So it just is what it is, and you work around it.
And also, at cheapest chips, Demon Smith Sorcerer, at 85 points, just chilling in the backfield as your support dude for artillery. May not be a bad thing, because he's also going to be able to chip in with some magic that is likely to be out of dispel range because he's so far back. So being a level 1 or 2 there isn't as big of a downside as it might be otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, Demonology's got a good magic missile, I think, as its signature. So I think that's a good kind of and very thematic as well. I think that's really excellent. So yeah, I completely agree. That's a really good shout, actually. You could just have one babysit some war machines as another one runs around. And that is cheap. I think that's cheap. An engineer that's a level 1 wizard doing, the just base demonology spell, that's not... Stick a ruby ring on there, pow, some light chaff that's coming for your war machines. Don't hate that. If you like
it, then you better put a ruby ring on it. Why not?
Yeah, pow. At least finally we get a fireball. Pow.
Yeah, right? Damn it.
All right, so the other 2 characters, you got an Infernal Guard commanders and Bull Centaur Taur'ruk. So they're both quite different. The Infernal Guard commanders are your non-wizard lords in the army. And you got the Castellan, who's toughness 5, strength 5, leadership 10. And he's, I think, cheap at 125 points and 4 attacks. Weapon skill 6. But he's not a Chaos Lord. And unless you can put a Chaos Lord on a dragon, you don't really tend to see a Chaos Lord. And, therefore, I don't really know why I would take a commander or even a Seneschal. Seneschal I'll probably take because, obviously, that's my BSB. Only 60 points, 25 points for the BSB. That's pretty cheap. Heavy armor is base.
Banners.
Yeah, great banners. Can have all of the different weapons, a Dark Forge weapon, great weapon, Fireglaive Hellshot. So I would argue that that's pretty decent. Has Stubborn built in, Rallying Cry built in, so even your BSB is going to have Rallying Cry based on them. Black Shard armor. So I feel like that's decent, personally. Like your BSB is pretty cheap. How do you feel about just a 85-point BSB that's toughness 5 with 2 wounds and has got heavy armor as base? Can't upgrade them to having. I don't think you can upgrade them to having plate armor, which is a bit disappointing.
Does not look like it, but again, access to magical armor, up to 50 points worth. I think you're right. Like the points levels on these guys are enough to be enticing, but again, I mean, we're about to see someone that's super enticing, and I suspect that once you've paid the piper for your kitted out Sorcerer Prophet, you might be looking a little bit past the Infernal Guard. But as something that, depending on how you're building out your list, maybe something you splash in, beef up a unit, even just with a Dark Forged weapon, you know, not too expensive to add a little beef to your unit.
Yeah, and I think also like Rallying Cry, a BSB, and Leadership 10 as an army is a great start to an army. You know, like whether or not you take the Castellan, you will take the level 4. He's Leadership 10. Get that BSB in there. You've got, I think, a very solid army, which many other armies would be quite, you know, jealous of. So probably you're going to take the BSB, I reckon. But you're going to be fighting for points with this badass, the Bull Centaur Taur'ruk. Taur'ruk.
Wasn't that an N64 game? I believe it was.
Taur'ruk. But which is a monstrous cavalry character with stubborn, swift stride. The important part is loner, because he's going to be able to go into the Bull Centaur renders, who also have the loner keyword. Impact hits D3+1 at strength 5. Feels great. First charge, also good. Causes fear. I think is nice. An Armored Hide and Armor Bane 1 built in. Then 4 attacks base, Leadership 9. Like we say, toughness 5. 4 wounds. Comes as heavy armor. So it's a 4-up armor save off the bat. Can take a shield for a 3-up armor save. Or can take 75 points of magical items. Or can take a Dark Forge weapon or a great weapon. And so I still don't know how I feel about this guy, because he's not quite a Blender Lord. He's not quite, you know, he's only a little bit better than an ogre. So, I think weapon skill 5, movement 7, so not super fast, but swift stride. Like, I've been struggling to build this exactly how I want it, is what I would say.
Okay.
And I think the problem is Dragon Ogres. I think we can all accept that Dragon Ogres are too good. So
I mean, this is just a challenge that I think a lot of Chaos Dwarfs players are going to have, is that look like they need to ignore the woman in the red dress and not be worried about that other book, because that's not the book you got. You got this book, which also steals Black Orcs instead of Dragon Ogres. So like, within the relative value of this list, the internal balance of this list, yes, a Bull Centaur versus a Dragon Ogre 1-to-1, almost, you know, is roughly the same points cost, if I recall correctly, and, you know, not as good in almost every single way. That being said, a Dragon Ogre is ridiculously good, and therefore my thinking is immediately that means that if you're a little bit less good than a Dragon Ogre, does that mean that you're suddenly bad?
Well, no,
or actually overcosted. I don't necessarily know. So I just think that that because, you know, I think this happens in Warhammer all the time. If you're not like that max tier, then you're shit. And I don't necessarily think that that's true.
That's true.
Right? I think that, like, yes, it's a feel bad to have a unit that is essentially the same weird, does it have one set of genitals, 2 set of genitals type of a creature, but is decidedly a little bit less good than the other one. Doesn't mean that this one isn't good. I guess that was a long ramble, but nonetheless.
Yeah, I agree.
I assume you want to use these guys, but you're saying you just don't know necessarily how you're going to shoehorn them in there.
Well, I think the key part is the impact hits D3+1 at strength 5, obviously in a unit of Bull Centaur renders who also get impact hits. And obviously, because that all happens, if no one knows who's watching this, you do that at initiative 10 at the start of combat. That's a lot of immediate combat rares and maybe wiping out their front ranks, which I think is very good. And maybe like the lack of attacks. You know, I mean, it's not that few attacks compared to other units. Maybe I've just been a little bit like unimpressed with like combat lords at the moment. Obviously, if they're on a dragon, that's quite different. But generally, Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Four attacks is like that's how many a combat lord gets.
I know.
This guy's not even a combat lord tier. Like he's actually sort of in a mid tier of like not quite a hero, not quite a lord. What am I, God? I should. What have you created? I think it is cool too. Shout out like that he's got a 75 point budget for magic items and stuff as a result, which is pretty cool because that gives him a little bit more. Again, he doesn't have that full 100, but you're also not completely limited to the 50 points. I don't know. It certainly seems like a cool piece. And if I'm not mistaken, you need to take him to take renders, but do you need to take renders to take him?
Great question. To take Bull Centaur renders, you can have multiples of Bull Centaur renders. You don't need them. You need one per unit. You can only have one of them per one of a Taur'ruk per unit of Bull Centaur renders.
Okay, so all right.
And if you're out there listening, you don't know what a Bull Centaur Taur'ruk is. It's effectively a centaur that's also a bull. Is what it is. Should be more clear. So it's got this kind of interesting monstrous cavalry. I'd say it feels better than cavalry anyway. I'm excited to try one out. Even 145 points, probably a little bit too spicy to try to just run it around on its own. If it was like a Dragon Ogre, and the Dragon Ogres can get up to a 3-up armor save, then I'd be very tempted to maybe run these as like little solo pieces, maybe. But I think you can take magic items and you can get up there. Just a little bit disappointed that he can't just get full play or something. Maybe I'm just being greedy. I don't know. But pretty fun. And 4 wounds for 145 points for a character. Not bad. Not bad. All right.
Moving on.
Moving on. The Khan. Our last character is a 45-point goblin. It's toughness 4 with 2 wounds. Comes with no armor, which is pretty spicy. You can give them light armor and a shield, and you can put them on a giant wolf, so they're super fast, which will cost you 55 points. And can take 50 points of magic items. It's got backstab, evasive, levies, and warband. So just like backstab is just a bonus for if you do a charge in the back. 55 points. You have these in your O&G list. How do you feel about little solo melee goblin lords on a wolf?
I've used them in the past. Again, like this used to be a potential like chaff unit that you could use. And like something like the giant wolf adds to him fire and flee, swift stride, and just fast gav in general. So like you could have a really good little movable piece here for 55 points to just go and cause problems, get in the way. Have you been noticing that in your games that you've been watching that those little redirector type units, the great eagle style, those cheap and cheerful, get in the way, be annoying type units? Have you been noticing people using them as much?
So much.
Or them being okay.
So much, and then like the impact on the games that I've seen have been massive. So you're something between and anyone who's an old Warhammer Fantasy Battle player will be able to tell you how effective this was. But anything between like 40 points to maybe even up to 80 points, that's just going to just stand in the way and make it so that your opponent's big block isn't going to be able to move as you whittle them down with ranged weapons, or as you redirect them so you can countercharge with your big units. And obviously, like maybe it's even more impactful in the old world, because back in the day, initiative was just your initiative. Now initiative is based on your charge value, so those matchups can really change. Your unit's initiative 2. I have great weapons, but I got the charge off. Now I'm striking before you with the great weapons. That's a big deal. So yeah, those redirectors, and I've been putting something like 200 points worth of redirectors into my lists. Because again, I'll happily feed you 200 points to your scariest stuff all game if it means your scary stuff never engages with me. I think that's the problem with dragons, right? They're difficult to manage. So yeah, and all of the games I've seen, all of the players I've seen playing with them have been using a lot of chaff and redirectors to build it up. So yeah,
there you go. I mean, like just for a little bit more than one Taur'ruk, you're gonna have 3 Hobgoblin Khans, which gets you 6 wounds, 9 attacks. But anyway, but more importantly, a throwaway piece. Something that you can use to, or even just throw on the side of a unit or in the rear of a unit, but I think more often than not, just get in the way of things.
Let's also shout out the giant wolf belonging to the Hobgoblins, No Impetuous,
Yeah, exactly. Yes, thank you. Yeah, I was actually going to point that out. That's something that kind of removed this from a useful tool in orcs and goblins. These guys don't have impetuous. He also has evasive, which is a really cool rule, which allows him to get the hell out of dodge if he's getting shot at. I'm pretty sure. And levies would mean that he doesn't cause any panic tests if he does flee, I believe.
Yeah,
so like there's I don't know. I think there's definitely some play here as a utility piece. Again, looking for those cheap, anything that you can do that you can, to get something cheap and useful on the table. I think that's always a good thing, especially in something that's going to have like an overall, generally speaking, premium points cost for a lot of the choices in this book.
Also, move 9, March 18. Let's go. That's fast. Let's just say that's fast.
It's quick. It's quick.
And can take 50 points of magic items, so you can actually spice them up. In fact, let's do that now. Let's just go jump into the magic items because there's some to really shout about, and there's some to not really shout about. I think we can kind of jump through most of the magic items. Black Hammer of Hashut is kind of fun, but it's 60 points, and importantly, it's only got Killing Blow against a unit with Flammable. Otherwise, it's multi-wounds D3, and multi-wounds D3 is rare. So, you can put that on your 4 attacks on your Bull Centaur Taur'ruk, even on your, on your other characters. Multi-wounds D3 is quite rare. That's pretty fun.
I want to invent a format where you have to take the most expensive unique magic item available to you.
Ooh, that's fun.
So everyone brings the dumb weapon that no one will ever bring. Like I know the orcs have one that's super dumb that you would never bring. I think it's like 75 points. Like they're all just stupid. But like I would love to see more of these because again you're giving away your durability and all that stuff when you can usually I usually just skim all the way down to the 35 point purchasing section to see what we got.
Yeah,
and you're also going up against the Dark Forge weapons too, which are cheap and awesome.
Yeah, I think you're always going to go for the Dark Forge weapon on your sorcerer anyway, just in case you get the +1 to cast. And we should probably look at the Dark Forge weapon in a second. The Dark Maul's fun because it's got Killing Blow. Dagger of Malice is, I think, my favorite for a Taur'ruk, specifically because it gives you Frenzy, so +1 attack is pretty nice. But importantly, Hatred all enemies for rerolls to hit is real nice, but it doesn't have any AP. It's probably the problem.
It's a womp womp.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that's a bad one, in my personal opinion. And then we've got the Graven Scepter. When you make a wound roll, you always roll on a 4+, regardless of the unit's toughness. Pretty nice maybe on a Khan, but Khan's only got a couple of attacks, so I don't really see what the purpose of that is. So yeah, the dagger stands out to me, personally. But I don't think that's where the power is in the magic items. You've got 2 different types of magic armor. You've got the armor of Bazarak the Cruel, which is 50 points. You get immune to psychology, full plate, which is very nice, I would say, especially in this. And this is really nice maybe for a Taur'ruk. And then magic res 2. So again, wizards aren't fucking with you. And that's quite nice. Then you got Mask on the Furnace, which I think is really good, especially for this army, because it's +1 to your armor save and a 3-up ward save against flaming attacks as well.
Yep.
So, and I feel like that's a bit of a no-brainer, in my personal opinion.
I love everything that gives you +1 to your armor save. I always do like that because being mounted no longer gives you that like default +1 armor save. Anything that's going to allow you to juice it up a little bit, that's usually a thing that can take you from a 3 to a 2.
Yeah, and I think like maybe if you're on a Lammasu, you can kind of have that best of both worlds where you're -3 to magic res, but also you got 3-up ward save against flaming attacks. Puts you in this incredibly solid place, especially against probably the most effective shooting out there at the minute, which is battle magic. Pillar of Fire and also Fireball. So
fair point.
I think that makes you quite good actually. I quite like the Mask of the Furnace. And then talismans, you got Mantle of Stone, where it's +1 to your toughness, but -1 to your initiative. Like you don't really care, which is also quite nice. You could really build a pretty beefy wizard, I think.
Also super common. It's also a common item. You can spam it out.
Wow, yeah.
Except for the fact that the Lammasu doesn't give you the +1 toughness. Because you can just pay for it.
Exactly, or you can really, +2 toughness thanks to on a Taurus, sorry.
Taurus. Yep.
Taurus. That feels decent. The problem with the Mask of the Furnace feels like you're stacking those, in my opinion. Because it's the 3-up ward save. But +1 save on the Taurus is nice as well. Hellshard, my favorite for the Khan, is 20 points. If the bearer is killed, the unit that made the attack suffers D6 strength 5 hits with an AP of 1. Now, it's not that good, I understand, but I do think, a Khan on a wolf holding some sort of bomb or something. That's
not bad. I wish this was a common item. It'd be great to just have a bunch of...
just so many cards with bombs.
Yeah.
That would be good. I agree. Yeah, Hellshard. I like that as well. I think where it gets super spicy is the banners. Lammasu's beard is 65 points. Unit carrying it has a 6-up ward against any wounds suffered and gains the Magic Res 2 special rule. In addition, while within 6 inches carry the standard, friendly units have a 5-up ward save against any wounds suffered during the shooting phase, and they gain Magic Res. That's a lot of rules in one standard. So 6-up ward to the unit, -2 res to the unit. Units within 6 inches have a 5-up ward against shooting, and Magic Res 1.
I mean, anytime I see a lot of rules, I don't care what the price is, I'm thinking about it. So what do you think about? And also, kind of a bit weird that they've shaved a Lammasu and are just carrying his beard around. But nonetheless, what are your thoughts on this? Is this? I mean, this strikes me as good. Do you think it is good?
I think it depends what kind of style list you're building. I think that's one of the really exciting things about the Chaos Dwarf army, and where Dwarf players are furious at me right now, because Dwarfs try their hardest not to be a gun line. Try their hardest, but they are just they don't have the option to go fast. They've got some gyrocopters, sure, and they've got runes and other ways to get up the board, but generally it's only a couple of units that can go up fast, and they can't really support each other. Whereas we're already looking at little units that are redirectors, or the gyrocopters fill that role as well. And this is cool. Do you want to just be a pure out-and-out gun line? And someone else has an out-and-out gun line, this feels pretty nice. The Magic Res stops, helping reduce spells. Maybe you put your level 4 in a bunker, just shut down the enemy spells. 5-up ward to all your dudes, which feels very effective against shooting. And they still get Magic Res 1 as well, so it's just a little bit harder to cast spells against them. So I feel like it is really, really good, but it plays into that I'm going to build a gun castle army, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Or maybe a very slow dwarf army moving up the board, but I feel that's a mistake, personally. Next one, and this is quite funny because obviously these could stack, is the Ashen Banner, which is an enemy model that targets the unit carrying it suffers an additional -1 to hit modifier in the shooting phase. And this is where it gets crazy, because remember we talked about the fact that you can have a spell, which is AoE -1 to hit. So this is a spell from the spell lore, AoE -1 to hit to the enemy units, and that's in shooting and melee. Yep. So now what we can have is one of our units can be -1 to be shot. We can make you -1 to shoot in addition. Then we can have a 5-up ward save against that shooting. That feels pretty decent, right?
I want to pump a little bit of some brakes on negative to hit versus shooting, because it feels like it'd be really good. However, I would just, as a point of caution, say that a lot of the things that are ballistic skill shooting or shooting attacks that are coming at you don't give a shit about hitting. Or they're like Tomb Kings and they always hit on 5s. Or they're Wood Elves and they ignore a bunch of penalties to hit.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you're not getting a lot of value out of that. In combat, though, like the spell you were talking about. But in general, that type of I want these debuffs to be as cool as I think they should be, because I think that's maybe my 40K brain. Oh, you're going to be shooting at me? Obviously, I want you -1 to hit. But in general, there are the things that are taken in this game, generally speaking, ignore that particular kind of penalties. So maybe not as good as we want it to be.
I agree with you, absolutely. That's why I think the 5-up ward is okay, you have shot me, now I got to survive.
On the Lammasu's beard, it's 5-up ward in a 6-inch bubble. That's powerful.
Also, it's not just against shooting. I should say any wounds suffered during the shooting phase. So it's going to apply to magic missiles. It's going to apply to template, not templates. Sorry, they don't happen in the movement phase, shooting phase.
But magic missiles for sure, and there's some nasty ones out there, right?
Agreed.
So Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously this can stack on like, your big characters or whatever, so it could be very effective. So yeah, I agree. I think the Lammasu's beard is maybe a bit of a no-brainer depending, or maybe even a unit that you run up the board when we get to the Iron Demons. Them just having a 5-up ward save against cannons feels pretty nice.
Right? Right? Yeah. Sure.
So yeah, that's good. My favorite magic item in here, the Overseer's Sigil. Whilst within 9 inches of a model carrying the Overseer's Sigil, friendly units lose the Levies special rule.
So why is that a good thing, Rob?
It just means that they can use the leadership value of your general, and your general is leadership 10. So this makes the levies, which previously had low leadership and suck, now be able to use a high leadership and be very tough to get off the board. And that feels very good, especially with hobgoblins, because you can have a lot of hobgoblins. And they're very cheap, maybe too cheap, some would say, and they can ignore that. Which is, you can use your BSB, you can use your leadership, and that's pretty decent, pretty good. 25 points. It's for a fun, stupid, levy based build.
Yeah, I mean, basically, lets you use allows anyone nearby to use hold your ground, and so like if this is on a BSB wielding guide like you discussed.
Well, what's really nice is it's only 25 points, and it's whilst within 9 inches of the model carrying the Overseer Sigil. So you can just put this on some Ironsworn. Yeah, so you don't have to put this on, your BSB.
You're right. You're right.
So cheap. Like, so you can just be like, cool, I'm just going to put this standard here. Now I've got screens of hobgoblins, which are leadership 10. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
And very, very chap. Very chap.
Very chap. And then finally, Shroud of the Ancestor, 10 points. Gain hatred dwarfs. Just when your friends bring in dwarfs. Have you read through those before?
I feel like Chaos Dwarves should have default hatred dwarves, but whatever. It's all good.
I agree. All right, enchantment items, demonic familiar. Enemy models engaged with combat, the owner reduce their ward or regeneration save by 1 to a minimum of 6+. I feel that's fairly spicy.
I don't mind that. Like, I mean, considering that the stacking saves are a big problem, especially on monsters and stuff, like figuring out how to deal with dragons and things. If you're taking a dragon down from a 5-up to a 6-up, that's a big deal.
I agree. Yeah, I personally, it's within combat though, so like you're not going to be able to utilize it against shooting and stuff, but like, well, with your own shooting. But I don't think that's bad, and it's 30 points, which is cheap. You got a breath weapon, which we can avoid, and we got something that gives you magic res and +1 to your strength, which are 15 points. But again, you can kind of ignore those. And then the arcane items, the demon flask is 50 points. It's only a single use during the combat phase. The bearer of the demon flask may open it, and when they do so, all enemy units within this character's combat range must make a panic test.
It's a lot for 50 points.
I agree.
What about a shot glass of Lammasu blood? I got his beard in the trunk. What do I get with his blood?
It was 40 points. It's also a single use. However, you get an auto dispel of a spell. No dispel roll required.
Oh, no, that's good. That's an old school dispel. That's
pretty decent, right? Once per game. But that feels like in the right situation, that works.
You have to know what you're doing if you want to blow 40 points to stop a spell. But like there are some control spells out there that if they get off on you, not great.
I think particularly good maybe, against some of those necromantic builds, and especially if you can get into vampire counts with their everyone can make a move, reserve move. That feels like the big trick in their army, which is a one casts, or one person's got it to cast, so shut that down. And the other version is Scroll of Binding, which is 30 points, which is again a single use, but you roll 3d6, and again if you roll a double 1, you miscast, but you get to cast one spell on a 3d6 once. So not sure how I feel about that for 30 points, to be honest.
I feel like there's a power. I think isn't Power Scroll cheaper than that? Anyway,
but you can take both.
Yeah, you could take multiples of that one though. It's common.
Oh, I see. Your Scroll of Binding's common as well. Interestingly,
no, that's what I mean. Like that, the Scroll of Binding's common. Anyway, let's move on. I'll see if I can find it.
Okay. Well, that's it. Those are all the magic items. The only thing we'll probably bring up is a couple of bits. We'll talk about the fact that a couple of bits that we've got the Hellbound special rule when we talk about the war machines, where if you do make them Hellbound, they get a 6-up ward save. They gain fear and magical attacks. If they've already got fear, they gain terror. And additionally, once per game, a Hellbound model may reroll 1 scatter, 1 artillery dice. However, should Hellbound ever make a misfire table, make a roll on the misfire table, you get a -1. So now you've got an engineer that lets you reroll once per turn, and then the Hellbound special rule, which gives you a flat 6-up ward, and also allows you to once per game give you a reroll. So that's a lot of like rerolls on those war machines that are available if you want them to be. Yeah. The other thing to talk about for the army is a couple of little bits. The Dark Forge weapon, which we've been talking about already.
Yes.
That has got its own little table. Flaming attacks is a 1. Hatred all enemies is a 2. Life Bane is multiple wounds D3. That's a 3.
Very good.
Magic Res 1 is probably the worst. Hellforge is Strength +1, but Wizard, Spell Wrought, +1 to casting. And then if they're not a wizard, you improve their army characteristic by 1. I think that's the one I'd probably go for. 10 points to get +1 to cast on my wizard, who I'm probably not trying to fight with. Feels what I want, right?
So what I'm seeing there is if I'm a spellcaster, I got a 2/3 chance of something good, and if I'm a non-spellcaster, I got about a 50-50 at something good. And my cost to take that roll is 10 points.
Yes, 10 points.
Yeah, like, who's upset?
No one's upset by that. I agree. I think that's a valuable thing. So yeah.
And then that stacks on the regular. What are they? Are they Hellforged weapons? What's the main weapon?
In sorcerer weapons.
Ensorcel weapon. There you go.
So
which
just
gives you
AP1 magical attacks, unless you take another hand weapon or a great weapon. It's just if you use a hand weapon, it's AP1 magical, which is pretty nice, in my personal opinion. There's a couple of different weapons as well. We'll talk about those when we get to the units, the Fireglaive and the Hellshot Blunderbuss. There's a fun little Naphtha Bomb. And then I guess we should probably talk about the Blood of Hashut, which is a common magic item you could take on a couple of... it's not a magic item, it's a current upgrade you could take on quite a few of your characters. It's a single use, and instead of attacking normally during the combat phase, you can use the Blood of Hashut. You make a single roll to hit, and if successful, the enemy suffers D6 hits. These hits can be directed against a unit or a single enemy model. When rolling to wound, the target number is the same as the armor value of the model. So obviously this is great into your your 3-up, 2-up save, big characters. For example, the model... if they were in a 5+, then it would be a 5+ to hit. To wound. No armor save is permitted against wounds caused by the Blood of Hashut. Ward and regeneration saves can be made. Hits caused by the blood have the flaming attacks and magical attack special rule. So you basically roll to hit. If you hit, it's D6 hits. Then you roll to wound against their armor save. They're not allowed armor saves. And then their flaming attacks are magical. They can still do wards and regen. And
that's at your base strength?
So it's not you don't roll to wound. Does that make sense?
Oh, so you hit automatically, and you could be wounding on a 2 or a 3.
You roll to hit, so like your weapon skill roll to hit, your normal roll to hit, so whatever that is. Then you roll D6 hits, and to wound, it's whatever their armor value is what you wound on.
That could be potentially really good.
Yeah.
How much does Blood of Hashut cost?
Blood of Hashut, I think it's a 10-point upgrade. I might be wrong. 20. I'm going to say 20 actually for Blood of Hashut. Let me just check. 20 points per vial.
Per vial? You can have more than one vial?
Yeah.
Can you have a bandolier of Blood of Hashut?
Just keep checking it.
Interesting.
You like that?
I mean, so yeah, I do. I mean, all he's got to do is survive to make one hit. And then, I mean, you can, so one hit, remove the armor save. And then again, we're talking about like going to try and punk something with a high armor save, something that like, I don't know, my Black Orc War Boss on Wyvern.
Yeah, I think the big problem is the only unit that can take this is your Sorcerers of Hashut. So like,
really? So you can't put these on the Castellan, but even still, that engineer, that little beesh of an engineer.
Yeah, Yeah. Like it's. I always used to put that in 8th edition. I always used to put it on an engineer. It's like a nice little a little like fun little attack. You know, obviously it's a D6, so it's a bit random, but I don't think it's a bad shout in the right situation. Definitely, and you know, maybe a Hail Mary towards the end of a game.
I mean, it's just, I don't know. Strikes me as not bad. Not bad by any stretch. Maybe I'm overstating it, but it's, I don't know if you want to build an entire army around it, but that is, I mean, that could be real gnarly as far as oh, by the way, I've got a vial of blood.
10 points also if you throw, you know, like beetroot juice in your opponent's face.
No, actual cow's blood. Actual cow's blood.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think, again, it's situational.
I think you actually get bonus points for your army comp at Nova if you throw cow's blood at someone while using the blood of a shit. I'm pretty sure.
As the TO furiously enjoys himself watching it happen.
Oh, my. All right. So where are we going from there?
Well, so those are all the items, and I think like I don't think there's anything that feels like it's super standout. Like Orcs and Goblins, at least when we did the deep dive, you can see there's a bunch of items that gear towards like casting and you know, dispelling and stuff. Don't necessarily think that they've got like magic in the bag, but you know,
plus one toughness for -1 initiative immediately pops into my head. Like I remembered that, so like that's very good for what, 30 points, and it's common.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that mean that you could stack it too?
I don't think so. No, I would say no. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the units, and this is where I think you get the. I think this is where you're going to get some super interesting kind of like builds, right? So you have to take Infernal Ironsworn. They're 19 points. They've got full plate armor, which is so good. Because you've got to ask yourself. Oh no, Infernal Guard. You have to take. Sorry. You have to take Infernal Guard, not Infernal Ironsworn. Ironsworn are your your chosen.
Are they the elite guys?
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, that's weird that they have them out of order like that. Okay, cool.
That's incredibly bad. Anyway, Infernal Guard, they have heavy armor. Sorry, I was about to let me tell you about the things that I was about to say, which I now hate. Just like Chaos Warriors, they have heavy armor. And they should have full plate armor, right? I think Chaos Warriors should have full plate. Makes no sense why they don't, but whatever.
Yeah, but we're almost 50% less points for these guys, so I'm immediately more interested.
Yeah, they're 11 points, strength and toughness 4. They've got 1 attack each. They're incredibly high leadership. They're movement 3. Now, the real trick with these guys is that they are a regimental unit. They are a detachment unit as well. You've got shield wall. You have stubborn, right? So it's all about, if you wanted to go just dwarfs, you're doing it all from this one sheet pretty much. Because 11 points a model, you can only have a death mask, which is 6 points. So that's not, there's no banner. Okay. And
interesting.
Very interesting.
Interesting. So no magical banners as a result.
Oh, wait, hold on. Wait, is there banners? No, you can have them banned. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, we could have just kept reading. Got it. So definitely could take magical banners. Our bad.
I was just thinking about you can't have them. You can't have banners in the detachment units. You can have it in the single regimental unit, but you can't have them in the detachment units. But this is where you would build your shield. I think the way you build this is like your shield unit is going, because you can take shields, so then you can have that 4-up armor save and a hand weapon, and then that's your regimental unit that's going to take it. It's going to be your anvil, and then you've got your 2 detachment units, and you can build them with hand weapon and shield, great weapons for +2 points, fire glaives, which are effectively for 4 points, which are effectively a halberd. But in addition, they're also an 18-inch strength 4 AP1 shot weapon. Yep. So it's pretty cool.
And I'm pretty sure you can stand and shoot all day long with Chaos Dwarfs, correct? Like they can blast away.
They have got Yeah, so at range, it's 18 inches. It's not bad for a shoot attack. Strength 4, AP 1, and Armor Bane 1 as well, like I said. And in combat, it's Strength +1, so it's a halberd. AP 1, Armor Bane, requires 2 hands. The other gun you can equip them with, so hand weapon shield, great weapons, fire glaives, which is now a halberd that's also a shooter, or you can go blunderbusses, which are 12-inch range, strength 3.
Everyone's fantasy.
Exactly. Multiple shots, D3, volley fire. So we got a lot of, volley fire, but then we can go real wild. A model armed with a blunderbuss suffers no negative modifiers when firing at long range, or for using multiple shots D3, special rule, or whilst making a stand and shoot reaction. In addition, if 20 or more model belong to the same unit, shoot at the same target with a Hailshot blunderbuss, they may re-roll any rolls of a 1 when rolling to wound. Right? Pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think the one everyone's got the unit. I mean, okay, by everyone, maybe I'm projecting there. I've always wanted to roll with at least a unit of 20 because this is a rule that's existed for a while, and the blunderbusses are just the coolest. And I want them to be so good, so bad. But probably, I don't know. What are your thoughts about like unit size here? Like. Do you even like the blunderbuss, or do you think it's a bit of a trap, or does it matter because it's cool as hell?
Strength 3, so like that's a thing. AP 1 as well. I would say what I find really interesting, it's 12-inch range as well, and like I'm not really sure about that. You move 3 inches, so it's 15-inch range. I think what I like about the unit entry specifically for the not Infernal Ironsworn, the Infernal Guard, is you have to take a unit of them. So that's my kind of like take. But what's fun is you can really do a lot with that unit over, like, again, looking at Chaos Warriors. Because you can build, you're like, cool. Like, and again, kind of this option has been broken out into different units in the Dwarf roster. But in this, it just gives you all those options kind of baked into the weapons, baked into the unit, and just choosing. So you can really build how you want to run this. And I think that's quite fun. Even running fire glaives as your like main block, and then blunderbusses as your detachments feels pretty good. I quite like that as well. I think you've got some real options here. You can also have drilled special rule for a unit at 1,000 points, per unit 1,000 points, and you can also have the black shard armor special rule on a unit for a point as well. But pretty cheap. Like fire glaives is going to be 15 points a model. Hellshot blunderbusses is going to be 16 points a model. So you can build a lot of shooting and a very solid actual infantry front line here, which I think is quite fun, I got to say.
Yeah. I think with the way drilled works, or has been confirmed to work as well, I think that's kind of a no-brainer for these guys, allowing them to move a little quicker, allowing them to, especially if they've got shooting stuff, fall back in good order, and if you're already in a line hammer formation, maybe get down into your brick, or to spread out and get as many like standard shoots as you possibly can. I really like taking drilled on these guys too.
Yeah,
because I mean, and I feel like fire glaives have got to be the go-to.
I feel like fire glaives as well. I feel that's good, but maybe that's like the worst because it's the best. It's kind of the best of both, but it's not perfect. It's not great weapons or hand weapon. Like great weapons is probably a mistake anyway, but it's not like hammer and shield and then trying to win through combat res in your regimental unit especially, and then.
Like if these guys are getting charged, like anything that gives them a chance to stand and shoot stand and shoot with quality shots is going to up that first round of combat. And on top of that, they have shield wall and stubborn to fall back on, even if they do lose that first round. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Shields, by the way, also really great, even if you are using the two-handed weapon. Yeah, I love that idea. Whether or not it's good, I love the idea of Fireglaive center with some blunderbuss detachments. That makes me feel good inside.
Exactly, and you do all that from one sheet. So I think that's actually there's a lot more utility there. And then if we just jump up because we were there into our Ironsworn, the only difference is that they can't take any of the cool weapons, but they do have 2 attacks, not 1 attack. They've got full plate, not heavy armor. They can take great weapons at halberds. You can also have a magic standard, obviously. And then they have they're also a regimental unit. So if you wanted to build like an actual, do you know what? I'm going to give these guys great weapons. These are going to be my regimental unit. I'm going to use some blunderbusses from the Infernal Guard, and they're going to be my detachment units. They've also got Quell Panic, unless units fleeing, any friendly units within 6 inches that has the levy special rule may re-roll failed panic test. So if you were to bring a bunch of goblins and other stuff in, then you could do some stuff there. So like the Infernal Ironsworn, I'm not as spicy on, but that's because I've tried to run Chosen. I kind of get it. I'm not really sure what these guys are doing. Being a regimental unit, though, for some fun detachments, I think that's maybe what makes these a little bit better than Chosen. Chosen can take marks.
Also kind of interesting that you can deploy your mandatory 0-1 Infernal Guard as a detachment.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting. Although you don't have to. I don't think you get the benefit of being like half the sizes like you used to.
No.
Yeah, that's kind of neat. The first time I read through these guys, I really wanted to love the Infernal Ironsworn because they feel like both hammerers and ironbreakers at the same time.
Yes, I absolutely see that. Like Veteran is just baked in. Source of Weapons is baked in. Black Shard Armor,
drilled.
Drilled. So they're just very, very good. And maybe I think there's a way to just build Infernal Ironsworn as just like, fuck, dealing with that unit is going to be a nightmare. Like, oh, cool, did you beat me a bit? Cool, I'm leadership 10. I've got a BSB nearby. I'm stubborn also. Like, there's just a lot of fucking stuff happening to make this a problem. But I don't really like the slowly grinding you out for nothing happening 6-turn game style.
Yes, yep. Seem like a bit spendy, but again, like a lot of these units, like they just from a gut level just feel cool. I don't know if necessarily the best choices, but I can see people wanting to try and build around those guys. They're really great because I think if you're smart, you're probably building around
war machines, probably. Or I mean, we could jump straight to the star if you want to. Do you want to jump straight to the star?
Well, I was going to suggest Hobgoblin Cutthroats.
Oh, we could do those. I don't know if we're going to do Hobgoblin. I don't know if that would be a core, but they're 3 points each, my friend. How much is a goblin?
3 points.
3 points each. They've got shields. You can take light armor if you want to go up for that 5-up armor save. They can have a full command boss standard musician. Right, they've got Close Order, Horde, Levies, and Warband. They've also got the Backstab special rule. But as I've pointed out, the thing that I like about this unit, I mean, obviously it's cheap. If you just want to run 10 of these, 30 points, it's literally fucking nothing. Now,
Rob, I gotta call you out here. What was the first thing that you were horny to do when you read through this? Because I think a lot of times your first instinct is often bang on. And so I think we should take a moment to shout out what your first thought was when you read about Chaos Dwarfs.
Just take, what is, 100 of these is 300 points, right?
Right? Like you're barely covering your core.
Yeah, it's nothing, right? And then if you take that incredibly cheap banner, so they're not levies, so now their leadership 100, so you can, for not a lot of points, I can give these guys, I mean, fuck it, let's give them light armored shield, let's really spice it up and go for 400 points, right?
Or not. By the way, this is maybe the cheapest archer in the game because they can trade their shield for a short bow for free.
Agreed. So I don't hate that
3
either.
points. That's a 4-point goblin. It's a 3-point hobgoblin.
Exactly.
So there's something.
But now we make them have we make them not levies thanks to a magic standard. We give them a 5-up ward save against shooting. Mm-hmm. Their leadership 10, thanks to the general, they can have a BSB. I don't know. I've said this before about goblins. I'm like, who's getting through that many goblins? But the problem is leadership's tough to do with goblins. Well, these guys, you can be leadership 10 with a reroll. I mean, I don't know what else. That's 100. What did I say? Did I say 100 goblins? 300 points? 300 goblin archers. But fuck it. Just take 600 points. Can you get through? Can you get through 200 goblins? I don't know. I don't think you can.
Let's be clear here as well that without even doing your levy banner trick, which by the way has its upsides too, because you're not panicking other guys, that kind of thing. You can. These guys are Horde and Warband. But one of the best combos that exists is Horde and Warband. The Khan is warband. He's 45 points. You can have a Khan in one of these units, and they're going to be probably leadership 10-ish, just that way. Is he leadership 6 or 7? A Khan?
Oh, I don't know, but he can be high, definitely.
Or you take your BSB.
Khan is leadership 7. No way.
There you go. So leadership 10 just in a unit with 4 ranks.
Okay. And we're going to have a lot more of those.
Bricks. These are sticky bricks, is all I'm saying. And also for what? What are you giving up? A unit of these are probably these are probably too expensive. I probably shouldn't pick these Ironsworn or 1 billion Hobgoblin Cutthroats.
I like what you said. I like the short bows because short bows got volley fire. I'm not sure.
Yep.
That's a lot.
Actually, I said that really confidently. Continue.
That's a lot of shit shots that you could just throw at someone. Yeah.
I mean, they're 18 inches. It's but I mean, if you're coming into them, I mean, you're going to take some hits, but it doesn't really matter. They're just gonna stick anyway. Yes, definitely they have quick shot and volley fire. So they can move and shoot without a penalty for moving and shooting, and they can stand and shoot no matter how close the enemy is. So that's pretty nice.
Yes, that was my initial take, was to just take a bajillion of these. So you're right. So we've talked that through. I mean, it's funny. Just one Castellan at the back, get them, lads. It's so thematic. It's so good. Yeah.
But I mean, as far as if you want to go with if you want to go heavy artillery and covering in a lot, we're going to see a lot of indirect ability artillery. If you just a lot of times, there's just a lot of presence on the table that for a unit like Dwarves, for an army like Dwarves. Well, suddenly with Hobgoblin Cutthroats, you got some presence, which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
And they're also not impetuous. They're, they just stand there all day, plunking away with their stupid little bows. Why not?
Also, I think one of the fun things about this is, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, I mapped it out, because if you were just going to do 10 by 10, you then only have to actually do, about 40, and you just have one giant unit filler in the middle. It's do you know what I mean?
Right.
You just do the guys along the side. Anyway, so I think that would be really fun. Yes, so that was my initial thought, because I think one of the problems a lot of the people have had is with keeping their war machines safe. And so if you have a bajillion dudes, anyway. Right, so Sneaky Gits are also another unit that you can take. These have got ambushers, backstab, evasive levies, move through cover and skirmishers, and they are equipped with two-hand weapons and throwing weapons. You can take light armor, but you're not going to do that. But, a cheeky ambusher unit that you can take that's regular infantry. You can build this unit up to be quite big. They're 6 points each. Are they any good in combat? No. Is it going to maybe tie up the enemy war machine? Maybe.
Are they any good in combat? No. Weapon skill 4 on a fucking goblin?
All right, okay. I apologize.
Initiative 4? I mean, I'm making way bigger a deal than I probably should be, but
2 attacks, extra hand weapon.
2 attacks?
Let's go.
Skirmishing, ambushing, moving through cover. Backstab, which is rerolling hits if they get in the rear arc or something like that, or rerolling wounds, maybe?
Yeah.
Also, their leader's called a murder boss.
All right, fine. I'm in.
This is my favorite page in the book, guys.
There I was at the top of the show. Best thing about Chaos Dwarfs is you'll actually play Chaos Dwarfs. Now we're a little bit in. It's you're actually playing goblins. Welcome to the show.
What you want is the slaves. Bring all of their slaves. That is what you want. And 1 unit of the guard.
They're actually the labor force, actually.
Thank you, Creative Assembly, for pointing out that they're actually indentured servants. They're sharecroppers. They are not slaves. They're very different.
They're just the modern workforce.
That's right.
So we've got Hobgoblin Wolfriders. These, my friend, I don't want to piss you off, but they do not have impetuous. Right, so
super sweet skirmishing. A bit spendy on these guys though, considering that it's like how much of a step up are you actually getting over the Hobgoblin? You know.
Yeah, I think the Wolfriders kind of like could potentially fulfill an interesting role, but I think beyond that, like, you know, you can have a cheap little unit that's 60 points. Unit of Wolfriders just going to run up and screen, and I think that's, in my personal opinion, a very good reason to take them.
Oh, they have backstab too. That's fun.
They do have backstab. Yeah, like you could give them short bows, so you can just have them running around if you want. Cavalry spears, if you want to go that route. I don't think they're a bad choice. I think but you're never going to build like, you know, a 3-rank deep unit of Hobgoblin Wolfriders. I don't think. So I think beyond that, they fit into that role of there's a little chaff unit you can use to run around and do bits, maybe, but you're not going to theme your army around it.
Yeah, these guys, I mean, they are better than, like, just patently better than your standard Orc and Goblin Wolfriders. And have a lot of the same things that they can do. Like you can give them the feign flight, you can give them reserve move. Again, not so bad, but I think there's other things that probably do this better. What is it, 5+? So you're looking at 5 times 12 is 60 points.
60 points. It's not bad.
So you could. Well, for 55, you get the one guy on the wolf, the Khan, and like that's probably a better redirector just because he's a little more nimble, I would bet, and can hide, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree, but I mean, still, even the 5 Wolfriders still very possible to use as well, I would say. Next unit we're going to look at are the Kadai Fireborn, and these are fun because they're monstrous infantry. I quite like these. They're only 2 wounds apiece. I'm going to jump straight to what I don't like about them. 2 wounds apiece. So I think that's a problem, and they're 41 points, 20.5 points per wound is spicy. The weapon skill 4, they're a combat unit with 3 attacks at strength 5, which I think is quite nice. But they are hand weapons, so there's not going to be any AP on those. Apart from, they're in sorcerer weapons, so there's AP 1. But they cause fear. They have flaming attacks. They're immune to psychology. They have regen. They're unbreakable and stable and warp spawn like any demons. And they obviously have that little cheeky blazing body. But I have been a big fan of shouting out monstrous infantry, monstrous cavalry units. So I think, you know, a unit of 4 of these, 160 points, just 4 wide. If they get the charge off, they're movement 6. If they do get the charge off, it's quite a lot of attacks from a front rank, which is why I like monstrous units.
Yeah, and Blazing Body happens in the combat phase, but like kind of outside of combat. So you have the chance of like removing attacks, I think, before you even start swinging. Do we want to check out Blazing Body?
Yeah, Blazing Body.
I have noticed people.
Blazing Body.
Kadai Fireborn was like just a place on the page that you just looked past in Taur'ruk. I do believe they had some of the dumbest. Like they would literally kill themselves over the course of the game. Like that was one of their rules, where they literally just burn out.
Yep.
Now they don't entirely suck, and I do see people taking them. So I think there's definitely something here.
It's the strength 3 hit. When you're in close combat, for each model in combat, you make a single strength 3 hit. I don't think it has an EAP, but obviously it's got flaming attacks. So it's just got that potential to do. That's where their kind of extra damage comes in. And so I don't hate them at all. I think they're fast enough. There's enough output for there to be a reason to take them. And, you know, obviously they have flaming attacks as well. So in the right matchup, they're going to work. But, you know, I'm just a little iffy because the 2 wounds. That's my only bit that's holding me back. Otherwise, if there were 3 wounds apiece, fine. Like, and I've said multiple times, I think monstrous infantry, those front lines, MSU units are just so strong. I mean, even unit 3 is 120 points. Like, it's 120 points is so cheap that you don't commit anything to it, and then just all of a sudden, you know, you've got 9, 10 attacks just attacking you in the flank at strength 5. That's annoying.
Yeah. Like, I mean, well, if you even, I mean, the density of attacks is great, but I think the it's a double-edged sword, right? Of why monstrous infantry and cav is so good is they have a high density of attacks and a high density of wounds. Here you're losing a wound. Again, it's the monstrous infantry that they've got. I see why you're hung up on it, but again, I do see people playing them. So it says to me that maybe there's some play here, just as that like useful, unbreakable brick of flaming stuff. Also, they look cool as shit.
It's just, these are unbreakable, but so are 100 goblins.
right?
That's the only, like, if that's what their job is. All right, so now I've wanted these to be good for about a bajillion years. The Bull Centaur renders are movement 7.
Hey.
They do have Swift Stride, and that's pretty big in my personal opinion. They are a monstrous cavalry unit. They are 56 points per model for 3 wounds, so I love that, at toughness 5. Now, that's what I really like. I think that's pretty nice. They have only got 2 attacks each, which is the weak source here, in my opinion, at weapon skill 4. And then they have hand weapons and light armor as base. They have armored hide. So now you've got a 5 up. You can take shields for a 4 up, and that's as good as you can get. And that's where it gets a bit sad. But you can take great weapons, and they are initiative 3, or you can have shields and hand weapon, and then you can have a full command. You can have a magic standard up to 50 points, and then your main character, your champion can take a 25-point magical item. First charge, impact hits D3. Can we talk about that? Each model.
That's very good.
Each model impact hits D3 feels really nice. If you think about them as like a unit of 3 chariots together, so it's 150 points. They've got 3d3 impact hits at strength 4. That feels pretty nice in my personal opinion. They got Stampede, so I think they're either AP1 or AP2, one of those two things. And they got Swift Stride on movement 7. It's pretty big long bomb charge. I quite like these. Their sustainability is maybe my problem. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I nothing out here is nothing's like flashing red as like terrible. Do not take at all. I mean, again, you're hitting that you get into that 3 wounds again. Yeah, you're saying, as you noted, dropping down the 2 attacks. Oh well. Because you do have those impact hits, because they don't have the stomps necessarily, but they do. Impact hits are so good, and especially if Stampede gives them a little AP, that's where they're going to be putting their work in. And I like the opportunity to add some chip in a few magic items maybe on that Bahal. To maybe do something to juice them up a little bit. I like them. Yeah,
I think the fact that they can wipe out a front rank on the charge, that's really going to swing those combats. 150 points for 3 of them. I don't think you don't need to give them anything. Maybe give them a shield, so it's a little bit more. So it's you're looking more like 180 points. All great weapons. If you're going to get those charges off, then you swing in at strength 6. It's pretty nice as well. But I think these have got some play, definitely. Especially if you're blocking with all of your goblins and other stuff. Defo.
That shield for 3 points feels bad, but yeah,
yeah, definitely. What the fuck has happened there?
That hurts.
It feels like they put 1 point per wound. I think that's what that is.
Okay. Yeah, could work.
Right. On to the big hitter.
Hey, buddy.
Oh, here we go. Now, this has already become a problem. And so if you were kit bashing an army, this would be super fun to... An Iron Demon, a mechanical train, would be super fun to do.
It does just look like an old-timey, farm tractor.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you could do some really fun kit bashes with this. Anyway, Iron Demon is a heavy chariot, but straight off the bat, let's shout out, toughness 7 wounds, and a 3-up armor save.
And strength 8.
Strength 8. Now, it comes in at nearly 300 points, 275, which is a lot. Moves 5 inches and is leadership 9. Now, it is a war machine as well, kind of, but it's not, because it's specifically...
Heavy chariot.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you can give it the Hellbound special rule, which means you're going to be able to reroll its artillery dice and give it a 6-up ward save. And I think that 5-up ward save aura that we talked about earlier feels particularly good because, toughness 7 wounds, 5-up ward save against shooting, pretty nice. Or just a flat 6-up ward save.
I like your call out, because I do feel like cannonballs. I think the secret to the fact that artillery sucks now is to just bring, if you like them, bring it all.
Yeah.
So I feel like cannons could make a comeback just because maybe people aren't bringing enough cannons. And so therefore, something like T7 is pretty good because you're only getting wounded on a 3, and then your 5 of invuln. And again, the magic missile spam. There's just so many things that this is yes, that Lamasu's beard is 65 points, but you're protecting potentially. If you bring 2 of these bad boys, can you bring 2 of these bad boys in 2,000 points?
275. Yes, you can, brother.
Are they special or are they rare?
They are. Let me just talk. Oh, they're rare. They're special. An Iron Demon. An Iron Demon is special, so you can have 2 of these.
Oh, I know why. Because the Kadai Destroyer was supposed to be in rare. Got it.
Got it.
So that's sick. Okay, so now we've got 300. We've got 4 million hobgoblins, 2 iron demons. We're building a good list here, pal.
Okay, now this is where it gets super interesting. So it's got impact hits D6 plus 1 at strength 8. Let's talk about that. That's pretty good.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. It's got stomp attacks D3.
That's spawning a dragon on a 2-up, by the way, everybody.
Yeah. It's unbreakable, so you got to kill it. It's got D3 plus 1 stomp attacks. It's a large target, obviously. It's close order. It causes fear. If you do give it Hellbound, it will then cause terror, which is its own problem, which I think is really good. Now, it's got a couple of special rules, several special rules, so we should talk about those. But effectively, you can build an Iron Demon in 2 ways. You can build it as a bit of a gun platform, pew, with its steam cannonade, or you can build it with the Skullcracker. So we'll talk about the steam cannonade first, if you want to make it more of a shooting unit. So this is 18-inch range, Strength 5, AP 1, Armor Bane 1, with Cannonade and Cumbersome. And the way that Cannonade works, if a misfired roll... when shooting the steam cannonade, you roll 2 artillery dice before making any rolls to hit. The number of shots is equal to the total of both artillery dice. It's an organ gun. But what's nice about this is that if you do make it Hellbound, you've got a re-roll on one of those dice. And if you've got an engineer nearby, you've got a re-roll on the other dice. So,
really?
Yeah. Because it's one is re-roll an artillery dice once per turn, and one is re-roll an artillery dice once per game. You're rolling 2 artillery dice. There's 2 different actions, so those are 2 interactions that you could do. So if you ever rolled a double, so you've got I've rolled 1 misfire, but you've got the ability to roll to potentially get yourself out.
Is it only re-roll a misfire, or can you just re-roll the dice?
I think it's re-roll.
Could you also re-roll a bullshit roll?
You can re-roll a bullshit roll. I'll have to check. Maybe, I don't know which one. But let me tell you what happens if you do roll a misfire. If you roll a misfire, then all shots fired from the steam cannonade, if you roll 1, then it's -1 to hit modifier instead of rolling on the misfire table. And if you roll it twice, then no shots are fired and this model loses a single wound instead of rolling on the misfire table. I've determined the number of shots roll to hit as normal using the cruise ballistic skill and applying the appropriate modifiers. So it's quite tough to actually make this fuck itself up, is what I'm trying to say. It's very consistent. It's going to just keep shooting. And
what's his ballistic skill?
Ballistic skill on this is ballistic skill 4, so it's not great.
It's not bad. I was expecting you to say, yeah, it could have easily been 3 like regular dwarves.
And it's strength 5, AP 1. So what's nice is it's an organ gun. It kind of shoots at you, and then when you finally get close enough, it's going to charge you and just do a shit ton of impact hits. It's pretty good. But
yeah,
but then if you build it another way with a Skullcracker, instead of getting D6 plus 1 impact hits, you get D6 plus 2 and Armor Bane. So 2d6 plus 2 Armor Bane strength 8 attacks is pretty spicy in my personal opinion.
So I don't know what I like better. So he's lumbering destruction. So let's just think, what are the odds? So do we have Swift Stride?
An Iron Demon cannot march. Instead, you roll a d6, and its result is the model's movement characteristic. However, if a natural roll is 1, making this roll, something has gone wrong deep within the Infernal engine, rendering it immobile. The Iron Demon halts immediately and cannot move again for the remainder of this turn. So that's its lumbering destruction special rule. And then it has, and its movement 5 is the Iron Demon.
5, and then no other boost to its movement.
No other boost, unfortunately. So I can't. And I think what this is you eventually just get stuck on it. And it's unbreakable, that's a problem. But you could run it the other way, get units stuck on a shit ton of goblins, and then just countercharge with a couple of Skullcrackers. And no one wants a Skullcracker to charge it in the flank, I don't think.
You also have elementalism and access too, so you can also just teleport this mother sucker somewhere.
It's pretty spicy. Love that.
If I'm not mistaken. Hold on, I might be misremembering elementalism's movement spell, but I mean we're splitting hairs here. I think it's hard to go wrong, and also like that upgrade is 10 points. See, my thought here is just that like there's a chance you don't get any impact hits if someone gets the jump on you.
Yes.
Right. Whereas it's more likely that someone's going to be within, 23 inches of it to get shot at.
Yeah, it's true. It's super true.
This is basically where I'm at. And like, so like the fantasy of rolling up, boxcarring your like 12 automatic impact hits, like that's sick. But like, I do feel like you're giving up something, but it's only 10 points to do it. I don't know. I think you'd have to be very careful to not, you'd have to be very, very, very obsessed with making sure you don't get charged.
Yeah, I think there's enough shooting coming out of the Iron Demon that it's already a problem. Ignoring that you have shooting in the rest of the list. If an army's shooting at you with some fireglaves or blunderbusses and the cannonades hitting you, you're like, actually, this is enough I need to deal with. Then you get countercharging maybe. But, countercharges always work. Any impact hits require you to, work those skills out. And then getting stuck on this, I feel like, is a problem as well. 3-up armor save is pretty fun. Mm-hmm. The good part about this also is that you, of course, can drag war machines around with you, thanks to the carriage hauler special rule, which is honestly not a bad rule, especially if you just want to first turn just move a little unit up. I quite like that. That's not bad as a thing, but it's just a little bit of a side grade. So that's it. Talking about other war machines.
By the way, one of the biggest step ups ever for a model, I think, from one edition to the next, because literally the old Iron Demon, once it was in combat in the previous edition, just didn't do anything at that point.
Well, it can't use its grinding wheel attacks, which are effectively its stomp attack against behemoth units. So I think that's maybe where it falls down a tad.
Fair point.
But and because the thing that's going to try and kill it most of the time is going to be, a dragon probably that's going to be dealing with it. But if a dragon is eating, if your lord on a dragon is trying to eat this chariot, killing blow isn't going to work on it. It's a chariot.
So very good.
So it's just going to be stuck there eating away at it, which means it's 275 points. That dragon costs more than 275 points. That little character and everything on top of it costs more than that.
I mean, it's also if you put the 35 points on it for the Warforged or whatever it is, Hellbound, thank you. That's 305 points of I try and get it. You know what I mean? Like that is something that can take points, and just like a dragon, is likely that you don't give it up, because just getting the wounds in on them. I mean, one thing I'd be scared of one thing I would be super paranoid about is poison. Yeah. With something like that guy, but in general, a toughness of 7 is just so high that is your defense, and on top of that, you got a 3-up, and on top of that, I guess in certain situations, a 5-up award. So. Yeah, I mean, Iron Demon all the way. I think that's dope as hell.
I think it's decent. I think it's going to see more and more play as time goes on, in my opinion. So we got a couple of war machines, specifically the Deathshrieker rocket. Is 120 points, which I think is quite fun. You can make it be hellbound. You can give it steam carriage, so you can move it around a little bit. And it uses demolition rockets, and these are quite fun. So demolition rockets are 12 to 48 inches. They're strength 3 on the big thing, on the outside, strength 6 in the middle, using a 3-inch blast. They're armor bane. Their bombardment, their cumbersome, their move or shoot, and their multi-wounds D6 in the middle. And that's where I think it's spicy. Strength 6, AP 3, multi-wound D6. Ignore everything else. I'm just trying to land for 120 points. I'm just trying to land my Strength 6, AP 3, Armor Bane 1, multi-wounds D6 right on top of your head. Which I think is quite fun. And then it's got Infernal Sentries, which is the other version, which is a 5-inch template, because you can shoot either 2 rockets. 12 to 48 inches, strength 3, no AP. And obviously they've got bombardment as well. So I like this, the demolition rockets, because I love the idea. For 120 points, I just try and just punk a big monster, a character, another war machine, because multi-wounds D6 is rare, very rare.
It's rare, and I mean, it's not like it's low strength, and it's not like it's low AP. We're it's again, most of the toughness that you're going up against is going to be 6, so that's giving you a 4-up. I mean, it's not exactly high odds to wound something, but a couple of these guys is going to put pressure on any of those large targets that you can get shots on. Yeah, no, I like it. And by the way, also that 5-inch template changes the math entirely about like stone throwers being good or bad.
On the strength 3 version, yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, think of what Empire's got. They've got the Hellstrom rocket battery. Its strength, I think, is probably strength 2, or maybe I'm thinking of the mortar is strength 2. Either way, strength 3, going into a lot of toughness 3 things. Like if this is something that could pick up some models because that 5-inch blast template, should be the new 3-inch really. Yeah. So I'm always interested when I see 5 inches.
I think what I like about this is for 240 points, I just say, right, I definitely have got a chance to just punk your biggest unit. Like, you're running scared now. From 48 inches away, I'm just going to be potentially dropping a D6 multi-wound shot, 2 of them. 240 points, cheap. Got re-rolls in the bag thanks to my Infernal Engineers. I can make them hellbound. So, like, if my engineer isn't there for some reason, I've got this other re-roll potentially.
Right.
I don't hate that at all. I think that's cheap. Then, if you don't go cheap, you go big, Dreadquake Mortar, or if you combo them, Dreadquake Mortar, 165 points for the Dreadquake Mortar, and then plus 20 points if you go for the Ogre Loader, which you'll always do. And also you can make them Hellbound, which is 30 points, give them Steam Carriage. So the profile on this is, again, this is a big mortar. 12 to 72 inch range, you're not hiding on any map. Strength 3, Strength 6, large 5-inch Blast Template. So strength 3, the strength 3 is AP dash, but the strength 6 again is AP 3, and again it's a multiple wounds D6. A couple of special rules. Obviously, the D6 is only going to apply to underneath the hull. You've got a couple of special rules. Quake, until the start of your next turn subphase. Any unit, friend or foe, that's within 2d6 inches of the central hull of the blast template, scattering suffers a -1 modifier to its movement characteristic and cannot use Swift Stride. And I think this is why, if you're building that kind of like gun platform, go turn 1, dump 2 Dreadquake Mortar shots on the army. You're like, cool, now you might as well move. You're not Swift Striding across the board. And then, because if you go first in the game, they effectively might never get Swift Stride. So they're going to really shut down cavalry armies quite aggressively, I think, because you're always shooting before they're trying to charge. I like that. But it does have slow reload where if this weapon is shot during the previous turn, you may be unable to shoot it. You roll D6 on a 1 or 2, then you cannot shoot for the next turn. If you have an Ogre Loader, then you add +1. So it's only on a roll of a 1 that you're not going to be able to shoot in the next turn. And that is a massive disadvantage, but you're not spending tons of points. If you spend... I understand when I say this, it's going to sound like a lot, but 240 points for 2 rockets, 185 points per, so like nearly 400 points, but it's not quite. You're talking around 600 points to be able to, it's not even 600 points, but about that, and you're firing 4 shots each turn that potentially are doing D6. Strength 6, AP 3, D6 damage. I think that's a problem, right?
My thing is, versus the Deathshrieker, what are you getting for almost twice the points? You're getting takeaway Swift Stride, which, granted, is kind of situational, and a -1 modifier to movement. That's what you're getting, and like, I don't know, like how many Deathshriekers can you get in 2,000 points?
You can have only 2 in 2,000 points, which is
0 to 1 per 1,000 or 0 to 1 per 2,000?
0 to 1 per 1,000. Same with the Dreadquake. Which is why I think, like, maybe you just always go for the Deathshrieker. What I think is, if you're loading into it, if you're just like going like, fuck it, I'm just going to make this really your problem, and you just keep dumping shots at your opponent, they're running across to you. Maybe you don't ever end up taking the Dreadquake like in the Deathshrieker, but you can see what I mean about 4. Like you said earlier, if people are taking War Machines, they're really committing to the War Machines. You're just like, I'm just going to keep dumping these shots on my opponent and cause a real issue.
So that's the thing, is like, I think maybe what you're getting for your 200 points there isn't just that special rule. It's really the ability to take another one of those things.
Yes.
Like the third one is twice as expensive as your first 2 is the way to think of it. It's not quite twice as expensive, but like, I would always start with Deathshriekers, and then if you really want it, and by the way, I've never actually tested this theory out ever, guys. So like, but I do feel like just going all in on shooting, like pushing the chips it's like, oh, shooting's bad, huh? What about all of it? I don't know if I've seen it. I don't know if I've seen it yet.
I've seen it.
Maybe
I've seen it. I've seen it a couple of times at our events now. We saw an Empire gun line, which I think inspired a lot of people, and they were like, I'm bringing my Empire gun line now, wizards and stuff. I saw Richie, shout out to him. He's just a great guy. He came to like 2 events, I think. I think you played against him with his dwarfs, where he was trying not to do Oops All War Machines. Then he came to an event.
He's very much tried not to. Yeah.
Then he came to an event and he came to the team event, did Oops All War Machines, and then he was like, "That's pretty good, actually. That's pretty good."
But I mean, if we're thinking of we need 10 Infernal Guard. That's 110 points, and then the rest goblins, and then you could, and then what? 2 Iron Demons. That's 600-ish points.
Oh, you commit into the Iron Demons as well. Oh, we're going all in.
They're also artillery and really hard to get those points off of you, right? You could just super lean into it, if those guys are hanging out on the flanks, just crushing into whatever happens to come close to you. Why not? I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, guys, but it feels like. Because when I read this list the first time, I thought, "Oh shit, man! The artillery actually feels underwhelming and really expensive." Both of those, half of that it might be true. I think they are a bit pricey, but I do really hear your points about especially the Deathshrieker. I really do like it, and if that's the way you want to go and lean into shooting with these guys, just lobbing death over the top. I think I could get behind it. And then you got your Hobgoblin Bolthrower here, 45 points, bro.
45 points. 45 points for the Hobgoblin Bolthrower. He's a bolt thrower. What do you want from me with ballistic skill 3? There's also the Magma Cannon, which is kind of interesting. It's a flamethrower that you can move thanks to steam carriage, which is spicy. And then you can drop the Magma Cannon, though I don't think brings enough to the army that the Deathshrieker or the Deathshrieker brings, in my opinion, or even the Dreadquake. And so I think that's probably what you can avoid. And that is the entire roster. That's everything. That's everything. That's the whole kit and caboodle. And I think,
holy cow, we did it.
And I think the thing about it is that there's actually a ton of options. Like the ones that stand out to me is being able to build this great artillery train gun line. But that doesn't mean I can't see a bunch of wizards on Lammasus. You could see definitely like a countercharge cavalry army in here. You could build that, like I said, that Infernal Guard kind of like roster. You can just bring dudes who, I think straight off the bat, level 10, toughness 4 army, leadership 10. That's a pretty good start.
That Lammasu sorcerer prophet with, I mean, I know it's a dead horse, but elementalism. Yeah. Immediately, you got Plague of Rust of -2. So suddenly those 5-inch no AP pie plates suddenly are 5-inch -2 AP pie plates.
Pretty serious.
Pretty serious. Suddenly that if you're trying to punk a dragon or something like that, suddenly that -3 is a -5. So no armor save.
That's pretty good.
So elementalism, I could see really being helpful with this. I don't know. I think I would. My heart would immediately lean towards going all out with shooting. We didn't even talk about Black Orcs, by the way, guys. So you could be running, you can running the Black Orc guy on Wyvern with all the magic weapons you want. You can run a block of Black Orcs as your sort of core brick if you wanted something that was mean and resilient, like sort of what I've been doing with my Orc and Goblin army, and then build out from there. But personally, a bunch of mean dwarves yelling at their laborers and shooting hellfire from behind them. That sounds like fun.
I agree with you. I think that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. I think that you can really kit bash an army like this that will be super fun. You can make this very thematic. And I know that legends and these other things are definitely in this place where people don't feel comfy. But I think that, as a roster, I think it's got one of the most exciting rosters. It's why I played them back in the day. Everything else kind of stuck to what it was doing. It's missing a monster. It doesn't have that big kind of monster in there. But with the exception of that, Yeah, what's up, boss?
I was just pointing up to the Kadai destroyer in the sky. The Kadai destroyer in the sky.
R.I.P.
And again, if anyone's got access to one of those drawers where they keep all the stuff, just like maybe like take a couple snapshots of that PDF.
Please do.
Because there's a big behemoth-sized missing piece of the rare selections for sure.
I think also the competitive community, or at least the event community, is a little breathes a little easier that this is an army that's not readily available, is what I would say. Because this would be, I think you could have a very aggressively good first turn with this army, and it would be a problem.
It could also just, that's super potential there as well, especially if you're leaning on shooting. But again, we bake in rerolls. And man, two of the, I don't know. I think maybe I'd run into trouble cramming everything I want from that special slot. But I don't know. I think it'll be fun to see what you come up with for the Warhol tournament coming up, Rob.
Let's go. Well, I might still play Ogres for the Warhol tournament. I might not play this.
No. You gotta immerse yourself in the Chaos Dwarf.
Oh, then I'll bring the 100 laborers, the 100 soldiers at the front line.
This is where, because then you'll know whether or not you need to commit. Because the other thing too, folks, about the Warhol tournament is there's a 2-week exhibition lead up, so you get to learn how to play on Warhol with your practice game. You can play as many as you want, and you can also change your list as many times as you want. Your faction, you can it's a free for all to get ready for the actual tournament. So that's your chance, Rob, to test some stuff out. My wife is calling me. Time to go.
Time to go. All right. Well, listen, everyone. Thank you for listening to Square Base. Stay square blessed. Let us know if you've been running Chaos Dwarfs. Let us know what you think of Chaos Dwarfs. Let us know if you'd like to play against them. Let us know if you'd like to play with them. Let us know what your thoughts are on the video. As always, thank you to our YouTube community, podcast community, Val, Twitch chat,
Patreon community,
everyone, Patreon,
all you guys.
Listen, I think it's going to grow.
My wife.
I think Old World's going to grow. I think Old World's going to grow, and this is where we're going to grow it from. So loads of love to you. See you all soon.
Hell yeah. Thanks, guys.
Bye.